What's up, everybody? It is the Power Rankings Podcast, aka the Power Rankings Show. I did think about doing the point thing like I did last week, where I just pointed at you to see if you would go first. Remember? And you did not take the cue. You just sat there and laughed. And we had 15 seconds of awkward silence. Do you remember that?
I do remember. Best 15 seconds of our show.
But I think you edited it when you went to the audio part. I think you did that. So as it is the Power Rankings Podcast, by the way, I'm Elliot Harrison. He's Marcus Mosher, should say that. We're on Brinks TV right now, and we're going to be ranking the teams like we always do every Tuesday. So we will be getting to that momentarily. I've got a couple things to get to, got something to clean up from our Friday pod, which was packed, man. We had a lot of discussion in our Friday pod. Marcus really wants to do Christmas movies in one of our next pods, so we're going to have to do that. But before we do any of that, Marcus, hello, and want to get your takeaways from Cardinals Rams, all of them, both sides, league wide, micro view, macro view.
I just want to start with the entire NFL. I was thinking week 14 would be the week that like things would start to become a little bit clearer in the NFL, the playoff picture. Good luck, bro. Yeah, that didn't happen, right? Things are just more jumbled up than ever. We've got like in the AFC, there's like 15 teams. That's a little exaggeration. There's like 13 teams that believe they could make the playoffs. In the NFC, if you've got like 4 wins, you're still in the playoff hunt. It's just a mess right now. So the next month, it should be a lot of fun.
Good luck, bro. Hey, I'm going to do my favorite thing just to get it over with. Hold on. Here it is.
Oh, you moved.
I slide the mic in. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right, now that we got that out of the way, I could not agree with you more. It's even in game things were confusing, right? If you watched Dallas, Washington, if you watched Tampa Bay, Buffalo, what you thought was happening ended up not happening. And
Cleveland, Baltimore, right? Pittsburgh, Minnesota, all those games had 20-point deficits into the fourth quarter, right?
Cleveland, Minnesota feels like 1984, man. Like, no, not the George Orwell book that everyone on Twitter claims they know now. None of them have read for their political views. I meant literally the NFL season, 1984.
Yep.
1984 has been hijacked. Like, I feel like we can't even ever say that year again. And it was such a great year for a bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. So anyway, like if you were a Jefferson Starship fan. All right. Anyway, let's talk about the game. What do you got?
You want to talk about the Cardinal Rams game?
Yeah, that's a game I want to talk about. Yeah.
Listen, I know you want to make these big sweeping conclusions from one game of the season. And I just don't think that's fair, right? I think Kyler's still working his way back from an injury. Hopkins is pretty clearly not 100% yet. And they just didn't play well, and they lost. And the Rams played one of their better games of the season, and they won. And they almost gave that game away at the end as well. So the Cardinals might not be the number 1 seed now after losing that game, but I don't think it makes them a bad team or anything like that.
I was adjusting my thing. It looked like I was on a low chair and you were on the high chair. Like at where are you going? Red Lobster tonight? You said?
We'll see how fancy we want to be.
I don't want to make a big sweeping statement. Here's what happens every week on the podcast. I'm always promoting you. Always. You know, I'm always saying Marcus is the host of a great Cowboys podcast. Marcus does this. Marcus does that. He's really good at what he does. And I get nothing. So, which is fine. I mean, that's part of the deal. But I almost accomplished something for the first time ever in my career last night. And the Cardinals ruined it for me. That's why I was mad. Can you guess what it is?
No, I can't.
In all the years I picked games for the NFL, and, I was not a bad picker of games. I'll just say that. I never had a perfect record. I never went 16-0, never once. If the Cardinals won last night, I was going to have a perfect week. I went 13-1 on my picks this week and nailed the $10,000 one again. And I just really wanted to go undefeated. I probably wouldn't have even said anything on our podcast about
are you
it.
Saying
I just wanted it for me.
Really quickly, just to be clear, you're talking about straight up, right? You picked 13 of the 14 winners. Okay.
I didn't hit every gambling pick. There were a couple of
that's still incredible, though. Just to be clear, that's still absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I've the picks have picked up for me lately, but this is kind of how every year when I would pick games, my editor used to make fun of me. He's like, man, every year you're kind of plodding along, and then at the end of the year you just go on a run. And so
Can I brag for a second as well, since they're doing that on the show?
I'm only saying it because I always promote you. We never promote anything.
This is good, Elliot. We're giving out good advice. You got 13 of the 14 games right this week, and we hit on our teaser. Remember our big teaser that we made involving was that the Steelers, the 49ers, and the Buccaneers? It hit. So congratulations.
And we hit on the $10,000 pick. Yeah. So those are our big ones, your teaser and my $10,000 pick. That's really, and we're on Friday, we're going to talk a little bit about gambling strategy. Including why you do a teaser, which is what Marcus really likes to do, and my unorthodox way of picking games that I think is bad for you guys to follow. And Marcus says it's actually kind of smart. So I'm still waiting for him to explain that to me. Friday. Speaking of Friday, this past Friday, I just want to clean up something that I said. Marcus had asked me, why do we think the offseason has become more entertaining than the regular season in some respects? And one of the answers that I gave was that we used to, kind of know where somebody was going to go sign, and it wasn't as exciting because there was more long range reporting on it. And it kind of came out wrong, because there's actually more reporting now than there was back then, but there's a huge difference. Back in the 90s or 80s, reporters actually got to sit with assistant coaches. And it wasn't just the head coach was the voice of the team like it is now, where you don't get to see the assistant coaches come to. A lot of these guys had beers together in the 80s and things like that. And so when a beat reporter had a good line on where somebody's going, that's where they're going. Now, as Marcus pointed out last week, we look at guys' social media feeds to see who they're hanging out with, right? Like, oh man, is he down in Miami? And so there's more rampant speculation now. And there's so much of that going on that it becomes this building, like the tumbling ball that was chasing Indiana Jones out of that cave. Please tell me you saw that movie, Marcus.
Plead the Fifth.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. The only person alive who hasn't seen Raiders of the Lost Ark. Anyway, so I just wanted to clean that up. It's not that there was more reporting back in the day. That wouldn't make sense at all. It was the style of reporting and the access that reporters had. We had a better idea about where guys were going to sign. And a lot of times it was just about money. In this case, now there's so many other factors. Guys have made so much money in their early contracts. They actually can do a hometown discount if they want to do it. And there's so many other little factors, and we're following it through social media every day.
I think guys care more about like where do they want to live, who they want to play with, than maybe the best football fit, right? Like, I think that's sometimes third. It's, hey, where's the best place for my wife and kids to grow up, rather than this is the best place for me to put up the best stats and help this team. I think it's changed. I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just different.
Right. And speaking of football fit, when guys used to choose places for money, we didn't talk about scheme all the time back in 1993. Now we say, is this guy a fit for this guy's scheme? Right. Also, there's more head coach turnover now. So all those things play a role. Really, when I say long range reporting, I also mean long form reporting. You don't see hardly any long form stuff except like on The Athletic now, right? I mean, how many websites really do long form stuff? So I wanted to clean that up. So the other thing I wanted to just get to with Marcus here, I didn't tell him. People have asked me, like, do you guys talk about what you're going to talk about? And we really don't. We just kind of get on here and do it. But the analytics community is mad again because of the CBS. I assume you saw this.
Oh, of course I did. Yes.
So I would just like to say this one thing about it. If you guys haven't seen the video, Phil Simms kind of poo-poos analytics. He says he doesn't care what their explanation is. And the other guys on the set join in. Bill Cowher kind of buttoned the conversation by saying it's not that hard, guys. And I think the analytics community felt very dismissed. So I believe in analytics. I think analytics are valuable. I use them myself. I'm maybe not quite as into them as Marcus with football, but I do think there is a place for it in the sport as a tool. But every time the analytics community gets criticized, they get very, very upset. Yet they criticize coaches non-stop and speculate, this is why Matt Nagy should be fired, or this is why this guy should be fired because of this decision. which I'm not saying they're wrong, right? I'm just saying, like, if you're going to dish it out, you got to be able to take a little bit of it. I think what the analytics community is mad at, Marcus, tell me if I'm wrong, is just that Phil Simms kind of said, I don't care what the explanation is. I don't want to la, 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 la kind of thing.
It's that he's not even hearing the argument, right? Because these people on Microsoft Excel are coming up with this idea on how to potentially play the game. It's not interesting to me, and I would never use it. I think that's why a lot of the people in the analytics community get upset, but it is what it is. I do agree with you. I think I'm going to say we, because I feel like I'm at least a somewhat part of the analytics community. We're a little soft. We need to have a little bit tougher skin here. But let's it goes both ways.
I'll tell you the one area that I think the analytics community is not considering. And it would be interesting for me to have a debate with an analytics person about this. I'd love to hear what their take is. And maybe I'm wrong. So I'm not being Phil Simms here. But when they're studying data, let's just use an example. My team is at your 45, Marcus. I got a 4th and 5. Analytics would say go for it. You're not going to gain enough field position in a punt, right? Obviously, there's other factors at play, score, game situation, right? Mm-hmm. If the analytics of the situation say, hey, 64% of the time when a team goes for it on this, they win. 34% of the time they don't. What they may not be considering is that coaches are going for it in this situation, in situations that are favorable to them. So in other words, I'm only going to go for it on 4th and 5 from your 45 if I feel like I've got a chance of making it. But here's what comes into play. What if the entire game I've only been able to complete an intermediate ball on you and get short yardage, but I've actually had a really hard time picking up 5 yards when I've needed it? Maybe my slot receiver has a damaged forearm. So in press coverage, he's not going to be able to get off that and get the slant. What if I want to throw a bubble screen, but my guard turned his ankle in the first quarter and my linemen just aren't able to get out there the way that they should, and I can't run a bubble screen either? So I have two choices, right? I can get the quarterback out of the pocket. I can throw intermediate and just get 20 yards instead of 5. I'm just saying these are some of the decisions that go into a coach's head, and we don't know that in real time. What the data says is not factoring in, hey, is my slot receiver banged up? Has he been losing his battles? What plays do I like to run to get 5 yards? Right? Is this making sense what I'm saying, or does it sound like
it does? But I would also argue that the numbers backed it up. That's why it's not 100% of the time you should go for it in this situation and that kind of stuff. It factors in times where teams maybe go for it when they shouldn't. So I think what the analytics community, what you're talking about here, is like in-game situation, when to go for it, when to not. It's really about just giving you the best chance to win. If you punt it, this decreases your win probability. If you go for it and you don't get it, this is what your win probability is. That's a subsection of the analytics department that I would say is still a little tough to figure out. And so I think that's the part that former players and coaches are so upset about. But I think it's all worth having a discussion about.
Yeah. My point is simply this. Even though the data may be right, and again, I am for the data personally, there are things that coaches know about their team that we don't when that game's going on. We don't have everything. I'm just using the example of if I rely on my slot receiver to run a slant to get me 5 yards when I really need it. I'm oversimplifying. And I know he can't get off of press coverage right now because he hurt his forearm in the second quarter. That's something we're not going to know at home. And the coach has to be cognizant of that. And you can twist this any way you want. A lot of times I'll see on Twitter, an analytics person will say, what are you telling your defense if you're afraid to go for it, that they can't get a stop on a short field? Actually, you might be really confident in your defense, and that's why you go for it. Because you think, hey, even if I give the other team the ball right here at the 45, you know what I mean? You can make that work either way.
Sure.
And last thing I'll say on this, I think the perfect example of you not knowing what's going through a coach's head, I'm going to use something that's very near and dear to your heart, your Halloween costume. You went as Walt Coleman, Des Bryant, and the football, right? Mm-hmm. If memory serves, that was a 4th and 1.5 or a 4th and a short 2 for the Des Bryant throw.
Yep.
Right. At that point in his career, I don't think the Cowboys really relied on Cole Beasley late in games to convert key third downs, but he was pretty good. But he's not Cole Beasley that you know now. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just digging into like deep recesses of my soul that are going to just bring back painful memories. But go ahead, keep going.
Right. DeMarco Murray was a really good running back, but he was not really known as the great after contact guy. So it's short yardage. I don't know. First of all, 4th and 2 is hard in short yardage. That's a hard short yardage play to gain anyway. But that's Mike Allstott territory, not DeMarco Murray territory. So what did the Cowboys do? They threw a 9 ball to Des Bryant and went for it all. I'm sure analytics in that situation would say that is not the play to run, right? If you're running analytics on play selection. But given the Cowboys situation and they had one-on-one coverage out there and who their personnel was, it was the right decision. And it was a catch.
It was a catch, but Cole Beasley was wide open on a slant on that play. Just pointing that out.
Yeah, I was just trying to give a
I know what you mean. We should get to our power.
We should. I just wanted, because it's been all over Twitter, and I just wanted to kind of defend both sides of this deal. I understand why coaches are frustrated. I thought that was very poorly worded on CBS. I understand why the analytics community was upset. Well, but I thought it was a good thing to hash out.
Really quickly, we'll have some analytics conversations this offseason. I think that'd be a really good thing to have. Maybe we'll bring on a guest or two to talk about some of these things and why you should. When you should, believe in the numbers and when you shouldn't. So I think that's a good topic for this offseason.
Well, let's get to a major hot topic right now. Urban Meyer's future. That's starting our power rankings. We're at 32. I moved Jacksonville down and actually Houston up. Do you have any problem with this? I think right now they're in turmoil over there.
Yeah, it's really bad in Jacksonville. You got to wonder where Urban Meyer's planning his vacation in about 4 weeks because he's not going to be coaching this team. So it's a disaster right now in Jacksonville.
Houston at 31. They didn't get the win against Seattle. Right now, they are in evaluation mode. I know, that you didn't really love them playing Davis Mills earlier. Do you mind it now to evaluate what they have in him?
I mean, they're just tanking is what it is. Tyrod gives them the best chance to win games. Davis Mills is not ready to play, and they know that, and they're okay with that. They want a top 3 pick, and Davis Mills ensures that they get one.
There you go. Detroit at 30. I just want to say one thing on this. Was not a good game for them. They're missing Swift and Hawkinson. Hopefully they're going to get them back. That's what the word on the street is. But I love the fact that Dan Campbell denied that penalty at the beginning of the Broncos game.
10 men on the field. Yep.
Yeah. And I saw on Twitter the first comment to the NFL's video was like, they didn't accept the penalty, and somebody responded like, that's Dan Campbell, man. He's not going to do that.
Yeah.
I find myself rooting for him.
New York Jets, a root for, right?
He is. Yeah. I think he was a little
around.
He's a punchline for some people because of his press conference, his introductory press conference, who's become someone that I think people are genuinely rooting for.
It seems like, really quickly, it seems like he's the right type of coach for the Detroit Lions right now. That's all I'll say.
He at least changes their image from a team that loses all the time to a team that plays its butt off
every snap, right?
Yep. Yes. And I like that a lot. New York Jets at 29, not a good game for them. They hung around early. They just don't have the defensive horses, Marcus. I know we could talk about Zach Wilson all day or drop passes, but the defense is the problem for this team. And honestly, we talk about head coaches going to work with a young quarterback. How about defensive coordinators that are head coaches that have a sloppy defense to work with?
Yeah.
I think Robert Saleh's got to get this turned around.
You're hoping that like next year, Carl Lawson, who didn't play a snap for them this season, can come back healthy. You pair him with Quinnen Williams. You maybe draft another corner or two, and you can get back to league average because right now they are anything but.
Yeah, you knew what the Saints were going to do. They weren't. You knew what Taysom Hill was going to be limited, and it couldn't stop them late. Okay, Carolina at 28. This is a team that's going in the wrong direction. We could have the first 3 quarterback carousel. I love the idea. I think it was, I'm trying to remember who it was, said, I'd love to see them play each quarterback one series.
Like a preseason game. Matt Rule is very lucky that Urban Meyer is in the NFL right now because this is one of the biggest disasters in the NFL. I mean, Rule has been there 2 years now and you have not seen any progress. I mean, what do they do well? They don't play defense well. They can't develop a quarterback at all. And the offensive line is atrocious. So I don't get what's going on in Carolina right now.
Not only that, it's a bona fide regression in
Oh,
the sense
yeah.
that Teddy Bridgewater has played much better for the Broncos and played much better last year than any of the quarterbacks that played this year.
Do you know that Carolina spent the most cap dollars on quarterbacks this year of any team in the NFL? And they don't have one.
Yeah, it's as John Madden used to say, when you have two quarterbacks, you have none. And now that saying is when you have three quarterbacks, you have none. Chicago Bears, they're next up on the list right now. I got Jags 32, Texans 31, Lions 30, Jets 29, Panthers 28. Now we're at the Bears, and the Bears at 27. Justin Fields made some plays the other night. That game just got away from them in the second half, but oh my gosh, was that exciting. I wanted that onside kick so bad. That was amazing.
It's just a team that needs a reset at the head coaching spot, because I do think there's some talent. Obviously, not having Khalil Mack is a big injury. But I think with the right head coach in there, they can be competitive fairly soon. I've liked what I've seen from Justin Fields in the second half of the year. I don't think they're that far away.
So I know you were very critical of Matt Nagy not going for it on fourth down. I agree with you on that one. He should have. But
and he admitted that he should have after the game.
Yeah. Right. That was game situation. Doesn't matter what's going on. You know, the examples I gave earlier where you've got a receiver hurt or a guard hurt or whatever. In that situation, you're not going to win the game. Like, it doesn't matter. But Chris Collinsworth's been getting criticized for saying he's a good guy to work with young quarterbacks. I still believe that to be true.
I do. I actually think he's somebody who's going to go be an offensive coordinator somewhere next year and be pretty good. Like, if somebody hires, like, let's say a Dan Quinn to be the defensive coordinator or be the head coach of a team, I wouldn't mind bringing in Matt Nagy to be the offensive coordinator. I think that would work.
So I'm going to give you a situation as we go to 26 on our list. The New York Giants. You're Dan Quinn. You get hired by the Jacksonville Jaguars to coach that team with the idea that you're bringing OC in that's great with working with quarterbacks. Do you hire Jason Garrett, who's out there, or do you hire Matt Nagy?
I think Matt Nagy. I just think his game, I know he struggled this year, but I think his game is more suited for the NFL. I think Jason Garrett needs to go be a college head coach. I think that's a better job for him.
You didn't really have to seriously answer that question.
I just did. There you go.
I knew what the answer was before.
Listen, I just say, I you know my thoughts on Jason Garrett. I think in the right situation, he could be a good head coach or college head coach. So
for like Northwest Dakota State.
I thought like Duke. He was considered for the job at Duke. That would have been a great spot for him.
Yeah, the double directional college. That's where you sit with that. Okay, Atlanta Falcons at 25. The Falcons, they're still in it. I just can't rank them any higher, Marcus. I just don't think this is a very good football team, regardless of the standings.
So the Falcons have a point differential of minus 108 this season.
Yes.
And they are one game out of the playoff contention. Let's read through their schedule really quickly. You tell me how many games they win. At the 49ers this week.
Loss.
Home against the Lions.
They could lose that game too, frankly. If Swift and Hawkinson come back, I may pick the Lions.
Okay. At the Bills.
Loss.
Home against the Saints.
Loss. Actually, you know what? I'll give them a win against the Saints, even though they already got their win against the Saints.
I think they beat the Lions and the Saints, and that gets them to 8 wins, and that might be enough for a playoff spot.
Oh my gosh! Absolutely, can we go to 24?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Pittsburgh Steelers, another team that might make the playoffs. It's hard to say. Well, I mean, they did get help this week. Cincinnati, Bates dropping that ball helped them. The Ravens losing. I don't know that the Ravens losing help. I think they needed Cleveland to lose.
No, I disagree.
They needed the Ravens to lose.
I think the Ravens losing really helped them because you look at the Ravens schedule. I don't think the Ravens are going to win another game this season. I really don't. And even if they do win one, that's only 9 wins. I think Pittsburgh can absolutely win the AFC North at 9-7-1. So Pittsburgh's right in this thing.
Every time Marcus Mosher expresses confidence in the Steelers, go the other way. Hear me. Go the other way.
Listen, this is the reverse psychology here, right?
It is exactly. New Orleans at 23. Should I have had them higher after a commanding win against the Jets on the road?
31 touches for Alvin Kamara in his first game back. Like, they're just going to ride him the last 4 games of the season. They're not out of it either. I think they could be 8-9, make the playoffs, and I'm not sure anybody's going to want to play that defense in round 1.
I just didn't put them any higher because I still don't trust their passing game right now. I think they're going to need to throw the ball. Seattle does look a little better, and I'm not quite sure what to do with the Raiders when they don't have Waller. We're going to get to the Raiders in a second. So Pittsburgh 24, Saints 23, Seattle is 22. They've strung together some wins here. Is it going to be enough? And are they better than, say, Atlanta? If it came between Atlanta and Seattle?
I think they probably are, but their schedule is really tough. Like they've got a game against the Rams this week. I think they still play the 49ers once. It's nice that they're winning some games now, but I don't see them getting more than 7 wins this season.
You have Rashad Penny on one of your fantasy teams?
I don't yet. I might be
don't?
getting him in a couple of days. We'll see how the waiver claims end up going.
Oh yeah. Is he the hottest name on the waiver wire this week?
Yep.
I would think so. Although Corey Clement might be up there. Just for 1 week, just for that 1 week fix, maybe not. Raiders at 21. Speaking of Waller, you cover this team for USA Today. What's your outlook there for this team? Getting him back, can they sneak in?
No, I don't think they can. Their schedule's pretty difficult, and Derek Carr's yards per attempt have dropped from 9 to 7 since Henry Ruggs was released. It's a huge loss for them. Even when Waller comes back, they just don't block anybody. They're not really covering anybody on defense. It seems like a team that's probably only going to win one more game at most this season.
We had that Carr Prescott discussion early in the season, and it's just been bad for both guys lately, but Carr just has nothing to work with, man.
That's the thing is it's not even that he has had nothing to work with. He's had 2 major things happen to that locker room.
Major.
John Gruden, leaving, and then the Henry Ruggs thing. So I just don't think it's fair to make any sweeping conclusions on Derek Carr from this year at all.
I agree. Miami Dolphins, they were on a bye, didn't do anything with them, left them right where they are. They're right in the thick of the playoff hunt. Marcus likes their defense. They have played better. Marcus does not like their offensive line. I tend to agree. I don't really like their offense, period, although Tua has shown something
better.
We'll see what the Dolphins do. We'll talk about them on Thursday. Not really much to talk about with them on a bye. Minnesota Vikings at 19. We discussed that game on our Friday podcast. That was a crazy game. The Vikings also trying to sneak in there. This team continues to be herky-jerky. I certainly like the Vikings better than Seattle or Atlanta in terms of my wild cards, our wild cards.
I do as well, but man, this team is so frustrating because you see it at times, right? Like their game against Green Bay, it's like, yes, this is exactly what you guys should be all season. Just the perfect balance of run, play action, passing game, Justin Jefferson, Thielen. But man, their defense is so up and down, and Cousins, you just can never fully trust him. But I think 19 feels about right.
I thought the extra rest would be good for Dalvin Cook, given his shoulder. Really, I'm more worried about his hamstrings now from running past Pittsburgh defenders all game.
11 days to get ready for the next game against the Bears Monday night. Should be good.
That was called a poor dad football joke. Let's go Philadelphia Eagles at 18. They were on a bye. They are very much in the thick of it. I said this last week. I'll say it again. Boy, if they'd gotten that win against the Giants. They've had a couple of missed opportunities this year. I've got a good friend of mine who makes sure to tell me that every time we talk. But they're right in the thick of it, as is Washington still. So as you parse out, 19, 18, and 17 here, Minnesota, Philadelphia, Washington, it's possible 2 of these 3 teams could make it. I don't think so. If it's just one, who is it?
Philadelphia. I think they've got the easiest schedule left. I still probably like their offensive and defensive lines the best of any of these 3 groups.
Yeah.
And I think they're probably going to get to 8 wins pretty easily. 9 certainly not out of the question either. So I think I'd go Philly.
And I think Jonathan Allen's going to be out for Washington this week.
Yep, he is.
How many losses can that defensive
7 defensive linemen likely to be out this week for Washington.
Unbelievable. There's only one team in the league that has it worse right now on that front. We'll get to them in a minute. Let's go to 16 here and talk about the Broncos real quick. An emotional win for them. I thought that was an amazingly classy move. I loved seeing, if you didn't see the video of the team lining up with only 10 players on offense for the first play of the game, we referenced Dan Campbell, the Lions head coach, declined the penalty to honor Demaryius Thomas, and then Cortland Sutton, the Broncos wide receiver, then ran onto the field to get into the missing wide receiver spot in the huddle. just awesome stuff and a really good win for them. And they're right in the thick of it.
They are, and their schedule's not all that difficult the rest of the way. They'll play 3 AFC West teams, they'll do 3 other AFC West teams, and they'll play the Bengals this week at home. You win 2 of those, you're probably in the playoffs.
I would say one of the teams they're fighting for the wild cards, the next one on our list, the Cleveland Browns, who I've left at 15, it seems like, for 10 weeks straight now. But the Browns may win the AFC North. Couple things on the Browns. I was really happy. I think it was Austin Hooper who kind of defended Baker Mayfield and said how, and I've said it every week, like, I don't think people realize how hard it is to just live with these kind of injuries, much less play with them. I thought that was a big win for the Browns. Do you think they can win the AFC North, or you just not see it happening?
I thought going into today, the answer was yes. Now I'm worried. So I don't know if you saw, but right before we jumped on the podcast, they put 8 players on the COVID list, including their left tackle, Jared Willis, Jarvis Landry, Wyatt Teller, an all-pro guard. It's a short week anyways. They're playing the Raiders. It's gonna be a gutsy win if they win it. But if they do get a win there, I think they can win 2 more games the rest of the way. So I do think they have a chance.
That's what I was referring to when I said Washington has it the second worst. Cleveland clearly has it the worst in the league right now, although there's several teams dealing with COVID issues right now. Cincinnati Bengals are at 14. They're just dealing with issues of, we might not make the playoffs. That was a win they absolutely had to have, Marcus. And you and I on the phone the other night went over the schedules, and Bengals are the odd team out.
I'm so mad at Zach Taylor. Just by the way, I told you this after the game. It's just, you have the ball first down and 10 from the 25-yard line. You need a touchdown to win. And Joe Burrow throws 0 passes the rest of the game. He led you all the way down the field, just picking apart the middle of the field with T. Higgins, CJ Uzomah, Tyler Boyd, and you take the ball out of his hands. They've got to really, really be regretting that, because I don't think they make the playoffs now. I think they win maybe one of their last 4 games and they're out.
I thought the 49ers deserved to win that game, but I will say the Bengals had perfect coverage called on that play that was robber coverage. Bates got to pick that ball. That's the whole point of the robber coverage. You jump that route and you take it the other way. Anyone that plays Madden knows robber coverage. I don't play Madden. I play Tecmo Super Bowl, because it is by far superior. By the way, I would love it so much if Zach Taylor got online or something and said, I listened to this podcast, the Power Rankings podcast, and I don't really like Marcus Mosher's analysis, and you got mad. That would be amazing.
I would. That's fine. He's been a guest. He's been a guest in the Locked On Podcast Network, so I can't say too many bad things.
I just say it would be perfectly what we were talking about at the beginning, at top of this podcast. The team that beat the Bengals, the 49ers, they are 13. Gutsy win for them. If you don't watch much 49ers football, and I'm not breaking any new ground here, but you don't get a chance to see George Kittle play. This guy is a gamer. He is a top 10 gamer in the league. Who's better at their job when they're healthy than George Kittle is at his? Truly. I'm not saying he's the best player in the NFL. I'm just saying, when he's right, who's better at their job than
nobody?
him?
I mean, he's the best blocking tight end in the NFL, and he's probably the best receiving tight end in the NFL as well. It's just there's some times where he's not healthy and it really affects him, but man, he's good. And the 49ers team, they've got a lot of elements to be like a sneaky dark horse team in the NFC. Like, when they've got Deebo Samuel healthy and Brendan Ayuk's finally making plays, and George Kittle, if you are, I don't know, let's say you're the 3rd seed and you're Tampa Bay, you don't want to see San Francisco come to you in the first round of the playoffs at all.
Especially if they're healthy, man. I think they were playing with Wilson out there at running back pretty much all day on Sunday. They've got Bosa healthy. That defensive line was making life very difficult for Joe Burrow. There's things that don't show up on the stat sheet. Sometimes they just made him uncomfortable the entire game. The Chargers, this is interesting to me. They beat the Giants and it was, they beat them handily. Number one, I want to know how you feel about the uniforms they're wearing, those monochrome royal blues.
I do love those. Those are very, very nice.
You like them? Okay.
I do.
I'm not as much. I like the powder blue better. People are gushing about this throw that Justin Herbert made. It was really good. No question. It was a really good throw, but it's not like the greatest thing. I mean, I watched Patrick Mahomes throw a ball against Atlanta about 70 yards in the air to Tyreek Hill. Do you remember that one?
I can't believe you're zagging on this throw here by Justin Herbert. I thought it was incredible, by the way.
Now, I don't have any problem with someone saying, like, for example, my old colleague Daniel Jeremiah is like, that's the best throw I've ever seen. Like, he's at the game. Like, I get it. There's sometimes when you're live at a game, it's the best thing you've ever seen live. The best throw I've ever seen live ever. I was at Super Bowl 46. Manning to Manningham's the best throw I've ever seen live. It was unbelievable. This was a great throw. I wanted people to tap the brakes on the greatest throw of all time stuff. Like, I've seen John Elway make some amazing throws. I've seen a lot of quarterbacks. Brett Favre remember the throw Brett Favre made to Greg Jennings to beat the Broncos on the first play of overtime?
I do.
I think it was 2007. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, I just curious. Is that the greatest throw you've ever seen? What would you say is the greatest throw you've ever seen, live or television?
That was pretty good.
Could be college.
I'll have to think about it. Give me a couple of days and I'll come back because that one's up there.
We'll circle back to that on Friday when you're talking to me about, Miracle on 34th Street or whatever it is you want to talk about on Friday. Yeah.
Home Alone. Go ahead.
What'd you say?
I said Home Alone. It's the perfect movie.
Oh, I thought you said something else. Okay. Bills at 11. So I resisted the temptation to move them in the top 10. I actually kept the Titans ahead of them. I really admire that the Bills came back. Not a great DPI call there at the end of the game, admittedly, but the Bills continue to get themselves in holes, Marcus, over and over and over again. And I know they did it with the Bucs, but you can't just say, hey, it was against a good team. They've done it against teams that aren't good too. It's almost like they feel like they can turn it on. And then when they turn it on, Josh Allen will make some plays and they'll win. But your look shows me that you disagree.
They're the biggest freaking frauds in the NFL. I'm so upset with the Bills. Okay. I'm so upset. Listen, this is a team that should be really good. We saw them last year get to the AFC Championship game, and they've just regressed everywhere. They only beat bad teams, and even then they don't do it consistently because they lost to Jacksonville in a game where they scored 6 points. They don't beat any good teams. They can't stop the run. The Colts ran through them, the Patriots ran through them, and the Bucs ran through them. This team is soft. They just are. I know they want to act like they're the toughest team in the NFL because they play in Buffalo where it's cold, but they're soft. I don't like this team at all.
Okay, so I've got that. So you don't have any problem with me putting the Titans at 10 ahead of them?
No, not at all. I think Titans are way less talented and so much tougher.
So let's just hit this pack real quick. Bengals at 14, 49ers at 13, Chargers at 12, Bills at 11, Titans at 10. This is what I was thinking because these teams are all, probably playoff teams are very close to it. The Bengals just lost to the 49ers and they just lost to the Chargers 2 weeks before that. So that's why they're at 14. However, with the Chargers, they've been way too inconsistent. I couldn't put them higher. With the Bills, I didn't move them down because that was a bad call at the end of the game. They could have won that game, whereas the Bengals made too many mistakes to me. At the same time, I wasn't going to move them up. And part of it is because what did the Titans do with the Jags? They handled their business, right? Completely handled their business. That's what the Bills haven't been able to do. That's why I have the Titans the highest of this group.
I agree with you. I just think that's such a mentally tougher team than what Buffalo is. And they've been playing all season basically without their top 2 receivers, their star running back, a whole bunch of guys on defense, and yet they just get wins and there's no excuses about it. Okay,
so let's get inside the top 10 here. We got the Ravens at number 9.
You can tell. This Buffalo is annoying to me.
That's all right. I was hot about the Cardinals last night. So
we'll get to them. There. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
We'll get to them.
So just a little while ago, your little hot sports opinion fresh out of the oven was that Baltimore is going to miss the playoffs and they may not win another game. So Baltimore's schedule, they are home against the Green Bay Packers, who look really good defensively. In my mind, in the second half, they got their players back. At Cincinnati, that's going to be a tough game. And if you don't remember, the Bengals took it to them in Baltimore about a month ago. They've got the Rams at home. I could see them winning that game, but it's very possible they don't. And then they have the Steelers at home, which is always a close game. That's a 50-50.
Yeah, you may be looking at – that could be a game, too, for like if Pittsburgh needs to win to get in, right? So those teams are both going to be playing extremely hard in that last one.
Hey, it looks, it didn't look this way earlier in the year, but the best race in the league right now is the AFC North division title. I mean, it's all four teams there. It's up for grabs. Let's go to number 8 real quick. Now, I look at these teams as different than Baltimore right now because Lamar Jackson is out and they're playing Tyler Huntley, although he's done a good job, I think. So at 8, we've got the Cowboys. And last week we talked about tiers. I thought the Cowboys at 8, the Rams at 7, and the Colts at 6, which is exactly what I had last week. That's what I have this week. I thought that was a tier. Do the Cardinals belong in that tier or a different one? I've got the Cardinals at 5. So Cowboys 8, Rams 7, Colts 6, Cardinals 5.
I think they belong in this tier. I do. I agree with you.
Are any of these teams better than the Cardinals? I mean, the Rams took it to them last night. Now the Cardinals beat the Rams handily earlier in the year. I know the Colts' record isn't as good, but if the Cardinals went and played in Indy right now, they would lose that game.
Yes, yeah. This is tricky because I do think the Colts are a top 8 team. I just don't think they're going to make the playoffs either. And that's what makes this so tricky is how do you rank a team inside the top 8 that's not going to make the playoffs? I don't know.
It's because these aren't power standings. That's an easy answer. So let's start at 8, the Cowboys. What's good? Start there. I tweeted this out. I strongly believe it. DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory, and Micah Parsons. Good luck blocking those guys healthy. I need to say on the Micah Parsons front, I love Micah Parsons. I do. He's awesome. I think he's a defensive player of the year candidate for sure. But when I tweeted out that when he's been healthy, Randy Gregory has been their most impactful player, I wasn't saying he's had a better overall season. I'm talking about when he's played and he's been healthy. Randy Gregory's been amazing. I got a lot of guff for that. And who won the game for the Cowboys on Sunday? And I didn't gloat about it. I didn't. I could have.
Micah Parsons.
False. Micah Parsons didn't win that
Parsons
game.
had a sack force fumble that led to a touchdown. That's not bad.
Gregory had an interception that before that play.
Yeah.
Well, and
really good. Can I give you a reason why I think Dallas should be higher?
Sure.
They gave up 2 drives in this game that went for more than 18 yards. I mean, they basically shut out Washington the entire game. Washington had 3 drives where they lost yards in this game and only 2 of 18 or more yards. The Cowboys just dominated them. They had 4 takeaways in this game. Their defense was outstanding. I think you stack up all these defenses here, and the Cowboys have the best one when they're healthy. So I would put them higher than the Rams, the Cardinals, the Colts.
Well, 2 more quick things on the Cowboys here. Number 1, people need to remember that Randy Gregory's going up against teams left tackle. Okay. He's not going up against backs. He's not going up against tight ends. I
can't believe you're making me argue about Randy Gregory, one of my favorite players in the league. But go ahead.
I'm just saying, it's getting the point. I just see Micah Parsons everywhere, and let's not anoint this kid until he's there. He's not Lawrence Taylor yet, but he's had a great overall season, better than Gregory because Gregory hasn't been available. And DeMarcus Lawrence coming back. DeMarcus Lawrence may be a better pass rusher than both of them. Also, Dak Prescott has not played well at all. This offense has looked stale for about 5 weeks now. It's a major concern, which is why I have the Rams ahead of them. I didn't think a lot of Odell Beckham signing. He's gotten involved in that offense. I don't think he's as good as Robert Woods at this stage of their careers.
Yeah, and they've got
I know that's crazy to say, but
they've got a big game against Seattle this week. He tested positive for COVID today, so he will not be playing next week either. And
they had no Higbee. I know Higbee hasn't had as good a year as he did, say, 2 years ago, but he's still a pretty good tight end. They need him. Yep. But also Henderson's been out as well for COVID. So that's why they had to rely on Sony Michel. I like the Rams. I don't want to put them over the Colts right now. The Colts, a rested team. They've played very good football. I think your biggest concern about the Colts is their upcoming schedule, right?
Their season basically comes down to this game on Saturday night against the Patriots. If they lose, I think they're done. They win, okay, now we're having a real conversation about them. But their season comes down to Saturday night.
We'll talk about that game, obviously, on Thursday. It's an exciting game. That game is going to be in Indy. The key for the Patriots, obviously the key against the Bills for the Patriots was running the ball. This week, it's going to be stopping the run.
Yep.
They have the defensive personnel to do it. We'll see. Jonathan Taylor should be mentioned in the MVP discussion, in my opinion, but we know that's not going to happen. The Cardinals at number 5. I don't want to say anything about that. I'm so frustrated with this.
Listen,
team.
it's one game. I think the drop is a little excessive, but it's one game. I think I think they should probably be 3. 5 seems a little much, but that's okay.
Okay, so tell me which team they should be ahead of in my top 4. Spoiler alert.
Kansas City and New England.
You're so full of it.
Why?
Oh gosh, you're full of it. So
bad. They had a bad game. The Chiefs haven't had a bad game this season.
You clearly have changed your mind since last night. Whatever the way the wind blows. Exactly. So here's the thing with Arizona for me. Arizona has got a great record. I love what I agreed with you, Marcus, when we talked on the phone that their best team win was actually with Colt McCoy against the 49ers. Mm-hmm. It was a heck of a job. But here's the but. If you are a Super Bowl contender, especially in the NFC, I don't know why I had to say it like NFC. In this league, Marcus, I'm just kidding.
Okay, come on, cliche Harrison.
I hate that phrase so much. You have to win at least 1 out of 2 big games at home. Just 1 out of 2. Okay. They lost to Green Bay when Green Bay had their top 3 wide receivers out. And then they lost their tight end early in the second half, and Green Bay still beat them, running right at them. And the A.J. Green play was not what decided that game. Then they lose to the Rams, who are missing arguably their best football player. Now, you could say Aaron Donald. That's fine. I'll take Jalen Ramsey, number 2 on that team as their best player. Or if you want to take Cooper Kupp, fine. But look who we're arguing. Look at these players. They've got to win these kind of games eventually, man, or they're not going to get out of the NFC tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's really nice that the Patriots haven't had these kind of losses like at home against the Cowboys in overtime, or at home against the Buccaneers in a monsoon, or against the Chargers. I mean, it's really nice.
So let's talk about.
It's really nice the Patriots don't have those type of losses on their schedule, right?
Let's talk about those losses real quick.
By the way, I love doing it. I think they're really good.
Yeah. So I've got the Patriots batting cleanup here. Couple things. Number 1, Cowboy game was in overtime. The Cardinals were just trying to hang on against the Rams, and against the Packers, they were getting beat at the point of attack. The game against the Bucs, that's another game that I thought could have gone either way. I would take both of those losses over Arizona's loss to the Rams and the Packers any day.
Oh, it's fine. Listen, I think this Patriots team is really good. I think they're going to get to the AFC Championship game. Yeah. But
better offensive line than the Cardinals.
Just pointing out some of the hypocrisy on this podcast. That's all.
Wait. Better running game, better offensive line,
sure.
Better overall defense by a country mile, better coach.
But we know what wins in the NFL. It's the better passing game. So it's kind of cancels out.
Not always. Yeah, not always. Not when your defense is this good. Speaking of good defense, Kansas City's played great. And then you lose Chris Jones. And of all the COVID news, I think this is the biggest loss.
I would disagree. I think it's on the other side of the ball. Chargers losing Rashawn Slater is a massive.
That's a big one too. Yeah, he's played great.
These two, it really bums me out, Elliot, because I was really excited for this game, and I still am. I'll just say that. But the Chargers beat the Chiefs early on in the season, and I wanted to see them again to see what could happen, because I think this is going to be a heavyweight matchup, and I think there's a chance that we see these two teams again in the playoffs. So it's a football bummer, not to have both those guys on the field.
You want a hot sports opinion fresh out of the oven for me?
Sure.
Here? What you just mentioned, Rashawn Slater, who the Chiefs are playing the Chargers. That's why Marcus is mentioning him. So it's been a 2-horse race for offensive rookie of the year, right? Jamar Chase and Mac Jones. And Mac Jones has clearly pulled ahead because Jamar Chase has had a really rough go the last few weeks.
Although he did score 2 touchdowns this week. So
yeah, who's been the most consistent offensive rookie game in and game out?
You're leading me to say Rashawn Slater, which I have no problem at all saying, because I think he's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But to me, the answer is actually Creed Humphrey, who's the center for the Chiefs this season. I think he's been phenomenal. But both those guys have been great.
my point is, and when I get so mad at social media and I get so mad at the networks like pumping Micah Parsons all the time, we pump the same guys over and over and over again. And by the way, Micah Parsons deserves it. I'm just simply saying, like, Jonathan Taylor should be right in the heart of the MVP voting. He's
going to win Offensive Player of the Year, right? Well, no, right, that's not even the case, because Cooper Kupp's probably going to win it. So.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp will win that, and that's deserved. That's deserved.
Oh, yeah.
But hey, if Cooper Kupp gets MVP, I'm fine with that. We've never had a wide receiver win MVP. Let's go to Tampa Bay at number 2. The Buccaneers, obviously, Tom Brady is an MVP candidate. I was telling you earlier this week, I think Leonard Fournette has made just a massive difference with his team. And I wonder if this team would have won the Super Bowl without him last year. But they did let the Bills come back. Yeah. Their offense was not able to put together drives to keep the Bills off the field.
It's funny that you mentioned Fournette, because I take these little detailed notes to get ready for the show. So here's what I got on Fournette. Yeah. Last 17 games, including the playoffs last year, 1,650 total yards, 14 touchdowns, 78 receptions for Tampa Bay.
That's amazing.
They found basically a top 5 running back just sitting in free agency last year. It's just been incredible how good he's been.
I think I'll go tweet that out.
You should. You can have that one. That's fine.
No, I won't do that. Let's go to Green Bay Packers at number 1. It's an inside dig, guys. Inside dig. Green Bay Packers are my number 1 team. So really my question here is this. Do you have any issue with me dropping Tampa and vaulting Green Bay? Last week I had Tampa 1, Green Bay 2, Arizona 3.
No, and I mean, we talk about tiers all the time. It feels like these two teams are really in a tier by themselves, and I kind of agree with you. I think Packers defense is playing better. I think the offense is really balanced. My biggest concern is special teams, and is that something that gets fixed by the playoffs? I think it will. I have no problem with the Packers at number 1.
Preston Smith, Jair Alexander,
David Bakhtiari.
Bakhtiari. You know, they're man. It's hard. I think you said it best, or we said it. I don't remember, one of us said it recently that Aaron Rodgers really could play a B- game.
Yep.
And they could still win it all.
Yep. That's the difference this year compared to previous seasons, right? He could have a game with a 95 passer rating and they could still win by 10.
You know, I'm just looking at their defensive numbers right now. This team has the potential. I know they're not as good, but to me, they have the potential to be as good as New England's defense. Is that hyperbole, or is that okay?
It's a little bit of a stretch, but I think after New England, you could have them in the same category as anybody else, and I wouldn't fight you on it.
I mean, right now they're 7th in points allowed. Mm-hmm. They're 6th in yards. They're high, very high in DVOA, which factors in like garbage time performance and opponents and all that kind of stuff. They're a great defense. There's no question about it. You read my mind. And they have so many games this year, Marcus, with multiple takeaways. I'm counting right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games with multiple takeaways.
Crazy.
That's a lot. If you're getting takeaways, you play solid defense. You've got a great quarterback. They've got 2 running backs. They aren't even getting carries right now. I don't mean to gush about the Packers, but I think they're the best. Let's go back over real quick. I know it's been a long pod. I always like to go back over, though, and with our 32 teams. So let's start at the top here. Just hit them real quick. Jacksonville, I moved down to 32. A lot of disarray around that organization. What's going to happen with Urban Meyer? Texans are going to play Davis Mills the rest of the way. Marcus is super excited. The Lions still at 30. They just can't string the wins together. The Jets at 29, no defense. Panthers at 28. Marcus thinks they probably handled the offseason the worst of just about anybody. The Bears next up at 27. Giants at 26. Still waiting for Daniel Jones to come back. Falcons at 25. Still in the race, but neither one of us believe they're a great team. Let's go to 24 to the next grouping. Pittsburgh at 24. Marcus thinks they still have a good shot of winning the AFC North, much less making the wild card. We'll see about that. New Orleans Saints at 23. Still very much alive. Seattle at 22. Very much alive. Raiders we're worried about. It's looking like it's not going to happen. A tough season. Hopefully they can get a win, maybe against the depleted Browns. We'll talk about that on Thursday. Dolphins at 20. They were on a bye. They're still in it. Vikings, absolute maddening team at 19. Philadelphia Eagles at 18. Marcus thinks that this is the team out of this kind of group of the Vikings, Eagles at 18, Washington football team at 17. He thinks they're the most likely to get that 7th wild card spot. Broncos at 16, very much alive. Browns at 15. We said that we thought they were the best team to not make the playoffs. It looks like they very much could make the playoffs. We'll see what happens. Unfortunately, they've been hit hard by COVID. Bengals at 14, really tough loss there. Marcus isn't talking about it. 49ers got the win there. They're next at 13. Chargers at 12 with the greatest throw of all time. Buffalo Bills at 11. I'm sorry, I'll quit hating. That was an amazing throw. Bills 11. Marcus calls them the biggest frauds in the league. I could not put them in the top 10. I vaulted the Titans at 10 for taking care of business. That's what you do to bad teams, right? You take care of them. Baltimore Ravens at 9. Very much could miss the playoffs. And then back to our top 8. We've really got 3 tiers here. 8, 7, 6, and 5 are one tier. Cowboys at 8, Rams at 7, Colts at 6, Cardinals at 5. We've kind of dropped maybe the best team of that tier, but we think that the Patriots and Chiefs are of their own tier. They're at 4 and 3, and then the Bucks at 2 and the Packers at 1. With that, Marcus, any thoughts you have? You have the last word.
It's really unfortunate that COVID is starting to hit the NFL so hard at this time of the year, because we've got so many playoff races that are close. It really feels like the team that's the healthiest and that can avoid having 9 guys out in a week are probably going to be the ones that make the playoffs. And it's just kind of the world we live in now, Elliot. And it's just, it's unfortunate. That's all I can say.
Yeah, usually this time of year, it's different injuries. And I've actually seen less of those. And I wonder if it's because of the having less action over the last couple of years with preseason and stuff. They've really scaled back on that. But unfortunately, COVID has kind of taken its place. With that, we're going to get out of here. It's been a long but informative podcast. Thursday, we're going to pick games. Going to try to get that perfect record this week. Marcus will try to steer me wrong on one of the junk games, guaranteed.
Probably a Steeler game.
Yeah. Right. I'm like, are the Dolphins and Panthers playing again? He's at Marcus_Mosher. He's a great follow on Twitter, and he's got host of a great Cowboys podcast, Locked On Cowboys. I am at Harrison NFL. We look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Thank you, Courtney at Brinks. Take care, everybody.